to theatrical choices and why we make them. And that's why we have this eminent panel of directors and actors and critics up here to help us understand how decisions are made at a theater. And part of the reason Amy is up here is to balance all of these, ego-driven directors, to tell them how, maybe choices could be made different. So before we get going, I wonder if we could just have everybody introduce yourself and the theaters that you are most closely associated with, if that's okay. So.
I'm Catherine Moore. I'm the artistic director and curator of Olympia Little Theatre, and I've been
I'm John Munn. I'm the managing artistic director of Lakewood Playhouse. I'll be finishing my fourth year in February. I've been an actor that made his debut at Tacoma Little Theatre stage at age 8, so this is my 40th anniversary as an actor.
Wow.
Not being introduced, so.
My name is Amy Shepard, and you most likely see me as an actor in productions from Olympia Famiy Theater, Theater Artists Olympia, and Harlequin Productions.
My name is Chris Service. I'm the managing artistic director here at Tacoma Little Theatre. Previously, I was at TMT as the director of education for a number of years in the Capitol Playhouse as a company manager, and I grew up in Olympia and have been acting from down there and throughout, and now I'm here, very happy to be here.
I'm Peggy Joe. I'm the artistic director of Theater Artists Olympia. I'm also a local director and actor. I've been doing this for 40 years. And I've also been traveling around doing theater in different places. I just did The Weird here at Tacoma Little Theatre. And next production is going to be The House of the Corner at Olympia Famiy Theater.
I'm Jen Ryle. I'm one of the founders and the artistic director of Olympia Famiy Theater. I also happen to grow up in Lakewood, so I did a lot of stuff at Lakewood Playhouse back in the day.
I want to say also that Linda and Scott Whitney from Harlequin Productions send their regrets. They have an event tonight to help pay the bills, which is part of the
And
project.
John Riggs took his first ever non-theater vacation in ever. I'm so excited.
Well, so I wanted to just put the question out there to all of you. Why choose a show? What are some reasons to choose a show to be on one of your stages or even to be in? So let's start down here again. Why do you choose a show? How do you put a season together in brief? I know there's a longer version, but in brief. What are some
I
considerations?
think the first start has been the shows we want to do, the shows we can sell. We take what the steps in between there, because the shows we want to do, the shows we sell go on first, and then we work around and try to do a balance. We have 7 or 8 shows a year, and there are shows we do different times, and we don't have a heavy donation base like most of our operations and sales, so we have to really focus on what our audience wants.
So it comes down to what the audience wants for you.
To the point that we have an operating budget, we basically do about 75% of sales, so 75% of the performance of show packages we go to our audience, and there's a
Okay. I'm going to skip over to Bud.
Well, I'm kind of redheaded stepchild of the family reunion here. Dow is a gypsy group. We thought we had one for a while, but rising costs of rental has really changed. We've been together for 10 years. Has really changed the way we are set up. We used to have seasons. We used to have a home crew, and now we're bouncing. Really, what it comes down to with us is we have the shows that we love to do, like that we think is important, like American Roulette or Boy Gets Girl. And these are shows that are not very well attended. And then we do things like Reservoir Dogs or Bucket of Blood, and that brings all these people in. We still do shows that we think are fun, worthwhile, shows that other groups, because we are so small, Reservoir Dogs can get 30, 40 people a night, and that's a success for us because we work in such small venues. Where
and yet for you, that would be a great success. 80 people a night?
We'd be,
Great.
we'd be golden, we'd be able to do practically anything we wanted with that, because our overhead is so low.
Right, right.
You know, but once again, because rental costs and stuff have gone up so high, we just kind of, you know, it's amazing that we are still valid as we're going.
Yeah. John?
Well, to speak to that, when I was, 20 years ago, 16 years ago, I had my own theater company called Last Ditch Efforts, that we were a gypsy theater troupe. We performed at Jason Lee, we performed here, we performed the first ever outside next to Olympia. And I know exactly from which Pug speaks, and so we presented all challenging theater too.
Yeah.
But when I assumed this position, it was because we had lost our community friend, Marcus Walker. And I didn't really know how theater was going to go. So we were coming for our 75th anniversary. So the real thing I did was do a poll, which is both in-house and online, because both of those audiences are different. I feel like in-house audiences are to go to public, and our online audience are more savvy people that want to see certain kind of shows. You can see that by the polls. You can also track it by the emails to see that these are actors answering these questions. That's really what we do.
I always ask to do house on the corner.
So for our 75th anniversary, it was a popular season. But the goal that I want to do the first season that I was part of choosing in our next season is to have a wider swath that appeals to our, first of all, our audience. Second of all, have a wider base, so there's something there for larger number of women's roles, youth roles in the main stage show. So it's all these things, because there's all these elements that need to go into choosing the season. But first, it has to be fiscally viable. We are a 75-year institution that needs to go forward. And when I opened up the hood and saw where we were, there's a large reason that we're still here, because we had to make those choices.
Right.
Fiscally, we were struggling, but now we're not.
Yeah. So jumping over to Chris, you're new here, right?
Correct.
And so you bring perspective from lots of different theaters and experience. What kinds of choices are you making here?
What it comes down to, when I look at what we're going to do for our season, like in the season that was already selected, the way I think you need to approach it is theater that the audience wants to see. And so you have to find that balance of what they want to see. Then the theater that you think they need to see. That will expose them to new things. Where you do have to do your old four-horse shows.
Right.
But you can sneak in there things occasionally that give a little bit more depth to them that they might not experience, that you feel safe doing. But ultimately it comes down to being fiscally responsible to that. We do have to make sure that we're making what we do to keep our organizations going.
Right.
And so we do have to do an arsenal list. We do have to do Wonderful Life. We do have to do those shows that pay the bills. Then you are opening yourself up to being able to do the shows that might not be known.
Right.
Or that might be a little riskier, edgier. The Weird, we didn't know how the Weird would do.
How did it?
Really well. It
With
sold
patrons or with newbies?
with patrons and newbies.
And I think that has something to do with the criticism that we receive from the critics. I
Right.
think you guys got butts and seats for that show.
I hope so.
I think you
Yeah.
did.
Yeah, so speaking for Scott Whitney, who's in this empty seat here. So I went out for drinks with Scott Whitney some time ago, and he almost said the same thing as you. And he said it was actually really risky the first time they did a show that had never been produced anywhere else. He said, we have no idea what it's going to do. And so we balanced it by putting some shows in that we knew were going to draw an audience, or we had very high hopes for that audience.
I
Yeah.
call it, we do the 5 shows to take the one.
Yeah.
But
Harlequin has an advantage though, they have a lot of well-off patrons. So
Except they didn't used to, 20
they
years ago.
didn't used to, they
it
built
was
up a name
dangerous.
brand and they branded
Yeah.
themselves so they can do that. But Harlequin has a laudable record now of doing shows that none of their audience have heard of.
Right, but it took time to build that. I mean, it was, yeah.
If I can, I used to be involved with Harlequin back
Yeah,
in the day,
yeah, yeah.
my husband is the CD there. And before they got the space,
Yeah.
they did a lot more risky stuff. And they had,
Because they didn't have the overhead.
they had, oh, I can't remember the name of the group, but they had another smaller group that used to use the Midnight Sun that
Yeah.
would do things like Rhinoceros and these
Yeah.
the Renegade productions.
Yeah.
And they were planning on, oh, this is all gonna stay the same, and then they got the mortgage.
And then you're like,
And
oh, we
it
can't
all
pay for that. Right.
But they changed it.
Yeah.
And it is slowly getting back, yeah.
Except that, okay, from the audience, yeah.
I'm on the board of Tacoma Little Theatre, and last year when we were interviewing Chris, we were in the middle of choosing our season.
Yeah.
And one of the questions I asked him was, here are the criteria we're using to pick our season.
She should be in that other chair.
Do you think those are the right criteria, or is there something that we're missing? And he said something brilliant. He said, you have to think about what's happening in the community and make sure that the shows that you're doing are addressing what's happening in the community at the time. And we all do it. Some of us do it in a very natural way. In December, we do Christmas shows.
Concept.
But there are other ways that we can do it by paying attention to special activities that are happening in the
Right.
community. You know, I'm sure that when the art museum opens its new wing, I imagine that there will probably be a theater that does the show art.
Right.
Maybe, maybe not. But those are the sorts of things that I think can help.
Right.
Those are the sorts of things that I think are additional criteria that we need to be thinking about, and that Chris brought to the table that made me feel really confident in bringing to the theater.
Right.
TLC. So that's just another piece in addition to all of the things that you're mentioning, is paying attention to what's happening in our communities
Right.
and how we can be a very good member of our community.
So speaking of members of the company, Amy, how do you see theaters choosing a season locally? And what types of different seasons do you see as an actor? It's a big question. You can handle it.
Well, you know, I know most of the people who are on this panel, and I've often talked casually with them, you know, just because I'm curious as an actor, for someone who's going to be auditioning for shows, I'm like, so what's your season going to be, you know, what are you thinking of, kind of things, and usually it's about the same, it's, you know, getting, especially if you know, are still, you know, either getting established, or even if you aren't established, you're looking for those things that are going to bring people in, and then those things that are going to, you know, expose them to something that they might not be expecting. You want to bring them in and then be like, oh yes, and here's this too.
A challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. But, yeah.
Oh, I was pointing at her because I don't think you'd asked her.
No, actually, I think I jumped.
You missed Jim.
Did I miss Jen? I apologize. Your turn.
I was being a helper.
Well, I mean, it's an interesting thing to do. We do plays for young audiences, so we are doing shows that will appeal to a wide range of ages, meaning from potentially 3 years old to their grandparents. But it's the adults who buy the tickets, so we have a gatekeeper situation. So it's like we're selling to the gatekeeper, but we want to appeal to this other group. So it's a big challenge, and because the genre is not necessarily as full-fledged as far as how many scripts I have to choose from, as far as length and what will appeal to that crowd and what is quote-unquote appropriate. You know, I have to work hard to find those good stories. What I look for personally is I look for something that has a lot of heart and that can appeal to people in that way. And then we do, of course, the range of things. We try to do something challenging or unknown, and also Robin Toad every 5 years.
It's like Cannibal the Musical for us.
Yeah.
Come back again, guys.
You know, it occurs to me as they answer that question that I think as directors, and a lot of people that are on the panel are also going to direct a show in that season. So they're looking ahead, gosh, what do I get to do this year to make my life fun? We are theater geeks, and most of you are too. And we see theater as something that is vital. It's about what's happening right now, just like TV, just like movies, just like the newspaper, right now. And so we're drawn to shows that remind us of something that's going on right now. Even if we're going to do 12th Night, we want to move it in some way to talk about now. Whereas my feeling is a lot of our audience thinks of theater as a legacy art form, where you go to see Shakespeare or, you know, a Neil Simon play almost as part of your civic duty. It's like eating that Thanksgiving turkey every year. You may not love turkey, but by God, you're going to have turkey on Thanksgiving. So you see your role as being a fairly well-off person as going and being a civic booster and going to see a show. But it's so interesting to me because if you talk to people about the movies they loved at the end of the year, like what's your Oscar pick? They're not going to pick the shows they look forward to the most in January. They're not gonna pick a Spider-Man movie. They're gonna pick some movie that got them, maybe, punched them in the cry holes that they had no idea was coming.
Okay.
And so I think the disconnect is often between us thinking about now and what you deserve to see that you don't know about yet,
Yeah.
and what you think you should go see because that's part of your job.
That is such a great intro to the next question, which is, pick a show that you would love to produce or be in, that you wish you had put on, and yes, it can be for your upcoming season if you have to do that, and it's there. Pick a show and tell us about it. Like, what is your unproduced show that haunts your dreams? And I think I'm gonna start this time with Amy. I'm gonna pick on Amy.
Oh, no.
No. Pick a show that you haven't been in or that you would love to see in Olympia or Tacoma.
One that I would love to see is actually one that I, if I could, I would put at OST. But I don't know if it'll work there.
They're all listening down there.
And I will explain the reasons why. One of the things that I've always thought of, like I always do a fall show, and I've read a couple of scripts that I think that are good, that could easily be adapted, and it's Sleepy Hollow. Because I think that part of me, when I was growing up as a kid, it's like I loved Halloween. It was one of my favorite holidays, and I love that legend. Like we've all watched the Disney animated version with the frogs and most of it, probably about 75% of it is slapstick comedy.
Except for the head coming out, that part.
But in the beginning, it's mostly kind of very slapsticky, very funny. I mean, granted at the time some of it's very misogynistic, it would have to be altered slightly. But like the main thing when I brought it up to be like, oh, why wouldn't we do this? Is because it's scary.
Yeah.
And I think that, even when they did Bunnicula, which that book is adorable. It's a bunny rabbit vampire. Like, what's going to be scary about that? It's really character. But I don't know if it would necessarily be successful because of the atmosphere right now of young families that they might not come to it because they're worried about their children being frightened, traumatized. I think it would be very interesting and it would be very visually. Most of the scripts I've read, like the whole headless horseman bit, lasts less than a page, like half a page. It's like, oh, scary, and then it's like, oh, but now it's kind of. But there's so much, I think, in the kind of social and cultural atmosphere in regards to children and fear and fright.
Yeah.
That I think that possibly that parents would be like, oh, we don't want to take our kids.
Riles, was Bunnicula successful?
Nope.
Okay. Well, you're up next, Jen.
Oh, I'm up next. Oh, sure. Well, I have a whole bunch of shows in my back pocket I'd love to produce or direct. I did think of one that I could be in. Carve asked me this a while ago, and I haven't performed for quite a few years. But I certainly used to, and I thought of it. But the rights are all tied up in a movie. It's Mrs. Piggle-Wiggle.
The rights are tied up in the.
Yeah.
But it's going to be, they're making it a movie.
That damn
So there was a lovely stage musical, and
Yeah.
I can't do it anymore. We will fix it next year. But anyway, the other one is, there's a great play with music, I would call it, called Starry Messenger, and it's about Galileo. And, oh yeah,
That was my favorite pieces.
that play?
Brecht's Galileo.
Oh, okay, I'll do the script. Anyway, it's a wonderful script. It requires a chorus of scholars. It's really cool. I have all these visual ideas about it. It would be expensive to produce. So, and it's unknown. It's one of those, well, could we fit it in someday? The other one is Skellig, which is one of my favorite young adult
I brought that to
books.
her thinking, you're gonna love this script.
And I
She's
already
like, yeah,
got
I
it.
do. I do.
Yeah, I've wanted to do it since the theater started, but.
Okay. I'm gonna move on.
Go ahead.
You're up. Yes.
Well, next year is Olympia Little Theater's 75th anniversary.
Wait, that deserves a round of applause.
Oh, yes. Yeah, no, it was fun. And one of the ideas the board had was because we would do separate shows, we would give the shows and schedule and.
Wow. That's ambitious.
Oh yeah,
competition
In a
and all
totally
there,
different way.
jeez.
Yeah.
We're doing that basically. Yes, I know.
Yeah.
We thought of that before the announcement.
Darn them.
Wow.
But yeah, but it's, that's
It's a
again,
challenge,
if you've
yeah.
seen our space, that's a challenge, but it's how we survive.
I think if you knock out the wall and then.
But Catherine, I'm imagining those buses full of folks from the senior center coming in to see Angels in America and just,
This isn't about it.
Charles, you would be very surprised, but here's the thing about it, talk about.
I've been in Angels.
It's
I was
so
very surprised.
artistic. Yeah, by the artistic and the thing, you can do White Christmas, you can pay for Angels in
that's,
America.
there you go. There you go.
But was it a shower?
Where do I sit best? He did take me out. Yeah, he did take me out. And it was really well.
Gosh, I hate this.
There's no problem.
That is so helpful.
Yeah. Hold on. So people. Sorry. Say again what you said. I'm not sure. Yeah. Wow.
And I think, I'll say it's a woman, no, she's 60 now. She said a lot of women that get older, women are the only generation that's the only gender that becomes more liberal as they become older, and more free of the conventions perhaps of their middle age. That's all I'm saying. We see 60, 70-year-olds that they love to see more kind of conventions.
Interesting. John, you're up.
We're gonna do it. On my bucket list, we're gonna do it. And all my bucket list of local actors, we're gonna do it. We've got a history now of over a decade that was started by Marcus that we continue. We're doing shows like Monthly Business, we're doing Amadeus, we're doing, my name's Asher Levy, Farmville Convention, Children's Hour. This year we're doing, we're 1 week away from opening Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. We're not gonna back away from the shows. In fact, next year we're probably gonna rotate actually with Jeff Moffat. What's the show we're gonna do next year?
Rhinoceros, here we come.
I'm not gonna say what it is right now.
Okay.
But the idea is that because it's been crafted for a decade, we can do a show like this where we're training, we're teaching our audience and guiding our audience, and when we're doing that, so we have another show that's probably farther back as far as that energy. Yeah, that is a second choice. We're already doing it. We've quietly done it over the last 3 years. We have like a Trojan Horse show.
Wow.
But people think that, wow, that's just gonna be great. Well, we did all of her, but it wasn't everybody all of her. There was a woman that was beat to death 2 feet from people. We do form, but it's very naughty, burlesque, and risky, not with tassels, but, and musical comedy murders, it was pretty hard watching. But they're seeing what they think is a very popular show, and it is, but it's done,
It's
not the
changed up.
chestnut kind of way.
Yeah.
if the show makes the audiences laugh, they will forget it.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
say,
And sanitize.
since we're all adults here and part of you guys are gonna say I'm gonna sanitize it, we had a show that had the F word, freedom.
Yeah.
And the same, to answer you, my own complaints came from my more mature women. And said, I hope this is not the direction the Lakewood Playhouse is going, but anyone can find this in the show. And yet the next show had a woman caught by her breasts, so she would fall on the ground, and she walked out and said, I love this stuff, do more of that.
Interesting. Alec, you're up.
Okay. There's a musical I would love to bring. It's very edgy, and I hope somebody up here will pay attention. It's called The Last Session. It's been around for about 10 years, and it's got a cult following all over the country. Very few people in this area have ever heard of it. It's a play about a singer-songwriter who's dying of AIDS. And he can't take it anymore, and he's going to commit suicide. So he calls his old band into the recording studio to do one last session before he kills himself. And it is,
You're always in for the uppers, aren't you?
yeah, it was described by one critic as the funniest show about suicide you'll ever see.
Sets the bar low, I
Really
feel.
outstanding.
Would this critic have the name Clayton, perchance?
So So if anybody thinks they would like to take this over, let me know.
Okay.
You're guaranteed a good review from Alex.
I just have to give Alec a note to Alec. The songwriter is a friend of ours, and his partner
Is
is
that
a
Steve
friend of ours.
Scalpin? Is it Steve Scalpin?
Steve Shackle,
Yeah.
who's actually coming to Olympia to do 2 concerts on January 25th at Traditions. Is the play, he's the songwriter composer, and the show is incredible. And we have the official big DVD of the London production that just happened last year, a limited edition that we were able to get a copy of, and we also have bootlegs from Steve, official bootlegs of several other productions. So if anybody's considering it, let us know, because we're groupies. Alec has written about the play, but he always has to say, I'm a friend and I'm a fan. So.
Yeah, got it. Chris, I'm gonna go to you.
It's a show. It's a show for me that kind of awakened my love of theater. I mean, I knew I liked theater, but sometimes primarily we roll on, which is one of his best scores, but it was a troubled script. And the last 16 performances on Broadway is where they shut it down. There's all kinds of great stories that go behind it, but when you get down to it, it's a beautiful story told in reverse, and nobody knows. And they just did a film version of it that came through from London, that they finally worked out the script, they tweaked it, and it works now. And it's one that I think 10 years ago, no, I don't think anybody could touch it. Now I think it's successful and so important because I really think it is one of those undiscovered gems of somebody that you say song, and I'm like, great, we know who that is. And you say that show, and I saw Sammy's reaction. And it's not being cheated, but it really is. You sit down and you become so emotionally involved. And that's one that I would either want to be in a heartbeat or not.
Okay.
I have artwork from when I was in high school as opposed to if I want to do it.
Wow.
It was all figured out.
We're geeks.
That's a lifetime love, yes.
One of the things that absolutely kills me as somebody who enjoys theater hugely is to go to a hardcore convention or one of these edgier shows that are great shows and they're not full. And it just, I would love if somebody, somewhere, come up with a way of getting people to go to these things.
We're trying.
If you would.
We're trying.
Yeah.
It's a starting place.
I mean, when we did the Aesthetic, which was a show that was really well reviewed, and now, our first weekend, 5 people. The whole weekend, 5 people.
Did we ever have five
Or
on the
talked.
No.
No, they were all.
We budget our Tacoma place to sell 48% of tickets. We're budgeting Visual to sell 28% of tickets. We just, if it goes beyond that, that's great. The budget for the show takes care of the show.
Right.
And we treat our shows, and the way we've had to train ourselves, is that each show is a profit center. And it's knowing your audience, but growing your audience. For Children's Hour, we knew we were getting a large audience, but it was the highest percentage show of the entire season of new audience members that have come to see the show. And that's a positive thing, but it's when your monthly budget, which has to keep your theater alive, includes things that people don't think about, like our year of insurance, $7,000 a year. That's just insurance before you start getting into utilities and things like that. And you're kind of what we call our monthly nut.
Right.
Children's Hour made 1/3 of what that month should be.
Right.
But the other shows are here.
So I don't want to skip, you have a dream show you haven't done?
2, one for my theater, Rocky Horror. It's a logical for us, but, you're looking at 10
Are
grand.
you doing a Kickstarter for that?
We're trying to do a Kickstarter for that, we need 10 grand, and we raised $800, so $600.
Google
For
down
Rocky
and
Horror?
For
Kickstarter.
Rocky Horror, I mean, everybody's excited about it.
Indiegogo, right?
Yeah, I mean, Indiegogo, and we're gonna have to do a Kickstarter, we're gonna have to try again, because we're determined we're eventually gonna do a
Yeah, yeah.
show, I mean, it's achievement for us. The one personally I would kill to do is a show called One Free Spare. It's brilliant, no, it's,
Naomi Wallace.
Naomi Wallace. It's a brilliant show, it's a 5-person show, it's like no exit in a
So you can imagine how that poster would go over.
Yeah, and it's set in a plague time. Man and woman have been trapped in this space for forever. They don't really like each other. It was a love match, but she had been burned in a fire, and so they can't stand each other anymore. They're on, what do you call it, when you can't go, quarantine, because plague has ravaged their community. And a
It's
young
almost like a
girl,
zombie movie.
and a young girl and a sailor break in, and so they get slapped with quarantine again, with the four of them trapped in this house. And the older woman has never had children because of the fire, and she kind of adopts this young woman, and it goes from there. But you need number one, who's gonna go see it? And it's a modern play. You know, people are always asking me, why Dow does all these Reservoir Dogs and things that are free? Because if you look at the royalties for us, how do you get the butts in the seats to see something that is a project like this that you love so much?
Yeah.
You know, John called me fairly a while ago on the idea of shows that I just am not looking forward to seeing. I would turn it back to some degree and say I think what we're hearing is that there are shows that the theater companies aren't that excited about putting on. But what John and Lakewood Playhouse have been really good at doing over the last few years is they have set up an institutionalized process by which they find whatever director that is, who A, is qualified, and B, will get super excited about directing that show, so that at least there's some freshness to it, or that director gets to the nugget of what we loved about it 30 years ago, or whenever it was.
Yeah,
the new
like
thing.
passionate directors that love the show. We don't do anything by rote. We also don't present anything that we think is so tired. No, every show we put on, we want to do. We never do a show we feel on.
But you did say that some are more helpful than others in paying the
Well, they are, yeah. I mean, they're marquee names that help with that, but we have people that present them in a fresh way. That's our whole thing.
You always try to do a good job on production, but like Shadowland is a wonderful show, but when you have seasons people involved, some of it is more not middle of the road for us. They got rid of the middle sign and so an opportunity to go holiday parks so that they can. I had two, recently sure we're gonna sell.
Anchors.
They're anchors in
Yes.
October, and that's something you also when you time the shows, what do you put in there?
Right.
If there is for the show, you have to tuck in people to protect the spots so you have a cash flow that you can come in.
Right. So we have a couple people in the audience in the back first, and then
So I have a question. That'd be great if anyone would like to all of you. How does, the expected popularity of a show affect marketing? If you know a show is more of a well-known show, does that change the way you market to less of a show? What do you do especially to try to market to people, to try to let people know about it, to try to inform people about it? And is marketing a big concern?
We market every show that nobody's ever heard of before.
Here, here.
Okay.
Here, here.
Anyone else to that question? How do you market a difficult show or a show that you don't assume will have a huge audience?
Informed content. Do it either in your press release or create a YouTube video, or for instance, when we do our shows, if you have a show like the usual, or if you have a show like the Farmers Convention, you put it later in your season. So the curtain speech can help prepare your audience for just really cool things coming. And you can put it right in the curtain speech. This Tony Award winning, this Pulitzer Prize winning, this multi-award winning, this
We have
Academy
the
Award
best
winning.
actors and things should come to see it. We still take me out, because the show I had of that was a 55-year-old woman who loves spirits. She got up every night for it because I know it's a risk. I know it's about making that things I know it's all it's a wonderful story. You have to, she sold that show.
Right.
Have you guys seen that meme that's going around? I have to kind of, it's written by a science fiction writer who's talking about how she sells science fiction. I think you quoted it on Twitter. That if you want to talk about the Hunger Games, for example, somebody who's never read it, you don't talk about Panem and the reaping, and you don't talk about the clever idea that the writer is actually excited about. You talk about the story in very human terms. The audience does not care when the play is set. They'll get it. There's fancy costumes. They get it. They want to know who did what to whom and what's the hook for them emotionally. And very often I see, as a critic, I see theater groups advertise their shows as, remember us? It's us. You like us. Trust us.
Right.
Well, they do, But John is right on it. You still have to sell every single show as a story, and that gets your patrons and your newbies. This is the story. You're gonna love this.
Right, right. I think you have a question or a point?
I'm on the board of Lakewood, but impressive, what got me on the board of Lakewood, not doing in terms of the mix is popular and less about where you put it, and the way that Lakewood's been able to use resources from more popular shows in less, and shows that draw less audience, set piece of the customer. So the secondary appeal of, once you've covered the basic plan, is that a show that's lesser known will only attract audiences from farther away, but it will also attract future directors and future potential actors who will come to your show to say, hey, maybe take it back.
Pushing on.
Moving their work,
Yeah.
looking into beyond just talking about
Yeah.
theater. And, and I thought of that when we did the Raymond, which attracted actors who would never even perform this area at all, but and started also attracting directors and other folks who, started taking us seriously.
And then you say something like Chestnut, like Rainmaker, which by the way was our lowest attended show last year.
Wow.
Which surprised me. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Two cast members were here, and it was presented as a Chestnut, no Rainmaker, but it wasn't presented. We basically did our form like we don't present Chestnut. We had a director that was on, but all the pieces were there. You don't want to see it.
Right.
So, things like that.
I talked to, right, I talked to someone at Fifth Avenue who I just know because he was in a show there. And they said they're actually having more difficulty, believe it or not, selling tickets to Oliver than they are to some shows that are brand new, that they're producing for the first time. So Chestnuts don't always sell.
Do people get worn out on them? Is that what you think?
They already saw it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So,
you saw Lakewood, it's all up in here.
For me, it's not, I haven't been involved yet in like a mass marketing scheme for a show. I mean, obviously, I'm always like, oh, I have a poster, it's not going to tell everybody. But for me, what I try to do as an individual, because I have a lot of friends who aren't necessarily people who are going to go to theater all the time, and what I try to do with them is with each show, if I really want them to come, I try to find something that I know about them individually that will appeal to them. And then also,
You're a mom, it's about a mom.
well, sort of, and then also I think one of the biggest things that gets people to come rather than not, I'm like, hey, pay what you can night is this night, discount night is this, because until then they're like, oh yeah, maybe I'll come see them. Like, but if I say, oh, there's a pay what you can night, they're like, really? There is? And then it's like, probably like if there is some kind of discount night, at least on an individual level from people I know, they are more likely. Yeah, they are just, I mean, every like pay what you can night that I've done for almost every company that I've done, it's always been near, like, the houses are almost always sold out, and they're almost, and always twice as, rambunctious or excited to be there. You just like get a lot of repeat.
Do you guys all find that your first weekend is your slowest?
And until we charge our lowest ticket prices for the European weekend, yes, but now it's
Oh, that changed
Yeah.
because of the ticket price.
We've had sellout nights this year, so it's, again, it's not, ours have been growing over the last 3 years.
Our opening nights tend to sell, and then
A lot of it, to be honest, is the perception, which is correct, that because there's decades that we perceive some of us in our positions or our theaters, that, well, that theater's never ready on opening night. So I'll just wait till the second weekend. All of us now are presenting productions that are probably ready on Tuesday or Wednesday opening week. And we do have reviewers that are coming and done tech rehearsals and saying, wow, this show's ready to go. Yeah, it is. Because that's where we are now. So I think the word gets out. If you're ready to open week, your audience and ours are building.
It takes time.
And they're excited about it, and that's the second weekend then, I would say the word of mouth takes the third weekend. So it's the second weekend now that's become a problem about whether
That's the three advertising reviews. That's
So,
good or bad.
so we've kind of, yes.
Don't act like Amy said, because I do a lot of the curtain speeches for the pay what you can. And I find the audience is awesome. The audience is very enthusiastic. And what's more, the audience tends to feel an obligation if they like the show to help us.
And to shut up
It's a
and-
great deal, and they really get entertained.
They're gonna go tell their
And
friends.
they go on Facebook, they go to their
Right.
friends. It's amazing. And so you you actually get more PR or lower ticket
Right.
prices.
So if word of mouth really is your greatest publicist, and I guess I'll include me and Alex in word of mouth, does it matter what shows you select?
Yes.
Yes.
Especially I get people inside the doors.
Yeah.
I mean, for our campus, we have our season tickets are 5 shows. Get a season ticket price. And we have people who buy 5, 6, 7, 8, how many people we put on there. But I have to know, I have to get at least 3 plays that I know will appeal to ticket office holders. So they pick those and they go, oh, I didn't like the 4th one. And then the 5th one just might be, oh, I want one extra play to do that. If I only have 2 they appeal to, they'll go to single tickets.
I was too ambiguous. Obviously, it matters if the script is good.
Yeah.
Does it matter if the audience had already heard it?
Yes.
It still does.
Hey,
Okay.
If I say for our outside the box show, we're gonna do Death and the Maiden, or I'm gonna do Are You Now or Have You Ever Been? Where's your attention?
Yeah.
But
But
the other ones-
I've read those.
But the other ones,
Most people haven't.
Again, most people haven't.
Right.
But they totally haven't heard the first one. I said, although it's about the McCarthy here, he's gonna ask every famous person sitting at a table and doing the actual transcripts.
And about 2 words into that sentence, you lost me. I'm like, it's about whatever.
Right,
Because I haven't heard of it.
right.
So we've gotten into all the kind of backstage work of putting together productions. We talked about finances, marketing, budgeting shows, all of this stuff that is absolutely essential for the operation of any theater. But frankly, I don't think most people know much about it, or frankly care that much about it. Because I know that I got into theater and I support theaters because of other things. And I'm not here to talk about my motivations, but we only have 10 minutes left. So I wonder if we could go out with each of you telling us why you work in theater. What brings you to it? What keeps you writing about it? What keeps you on stage? What keeps you directing, producing, working at a theater? What was that first spark or that continuing spark that keeps you going in theater? So, Carter, you're
Theater
up.
equals me. I've tried to quit. I didn't know what to be when I stopped.
Yeah.
It's something I feel I'm good at, and I love it when it works, and I hate it when it doesn't, but I hate it in a way that drives me to try again. I've said this before, I'm happily married now. When you're happily married, your urge to do theater plummets. But, because you got someplace better to be. But I keep doing it because I don't know what else. That's me.
Yeah, okay. Jen, you wanna try this one out?
Wow. Well, funny, I actually usually tell the story about when I was little and I used to see things at Lakewood Playhouse. And my sister was in one of their summer shows, it was called Blue Kangaroo. You can look it up in the
Oh, I
annals.
know the 3 years they did it.
Okay. And I went to see it, and for me at the time, I was 6 or 7, and I was 8 or 9, and I was 10, and I was 11, and I was 12, and I was 13, and I was 14, and I was 15, and I was 16, and I was 17, and I was 18, and I was 19, and I was 20, and I was 21, and I was 22, and I was 23, and I was 24, and I was 25, and I was 26, and I was 27, and I was 28, and I was 29, and I was 30, and I was 31, and I was 32, and I was 33, and I was 34, and I was 35, and I was 36, and I was 37, and I was 38, and I was 39, and I was 40, and I was 41, and I was 42, and I was 43, and I was 44, and I was 45, and I was 46, and I was 47, and I was 48, and I was 49, and I was 50, and I was 51, and I was 52, and I was 53, and I was 54, and I was 55, and I was 56, and I was 57, and I was 58, and I was 59, and I was 60, and I was 61, and I was 62, and I was 63, and I was 64, and I was 65, and I was 66, and I was 67, and I was 68, and I
my other job, I have a few, as I teach Shakespeare to fifth graders at St. Mike's School in Olympia. And I've been doing it with fifth graders for forever, and every couple years, it's the bug.
Yeah.
It's and these kids think they know each other. They've been to school together since they were in kindergarten, and they think they know everything. And I was that odd little kid in the corner who was really shy and really awkward. And I find this kid over there in the corner and go, hey, you, come here. My Orlando this year has a list, you know? And you see it snap. You see it all fall in. And that's it. I need a tribe. I am a very tribal person. I need that whole thing that you get when you've got an idea and you've got this creative spark. And making it all happen is just alchemy. It's magic. And then you get to bring somebody else in that doesn't have anything to do with this great big conglomeration of what you've done. And you get to let them in, and every once in a while you see the spark of them and you can get it.
Yeah.
And that's as good as it gets.
Amen.
That's what it's all about. That's why I keep, even though we are, like I said, the awkward little gypsy people, it's why we keep going, because we do this stuff that people go, oh, it's just, and then they come in and they go, wow, how did you do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, how did you do it? And that's
I knew a family locally in Olympia who had not gone to any local theater. They came to see a production because one of the kids was in it. And they came out and they said, I didn't know people did this anymore.
Sadly, to get that from adults.
Chris, you're up.
I'll take the two. The number one is the fact that you'll never be a more eclectic collection of people.
Yes.
That no matter what the background is, no matter what happens, anything, you have such a unique combination of people that there's all walks of life that are impacted by it. And so you are always welcome there. And that goes from the patron level to the actor level to the business level. Everything. Everybody brings something to this wonderful melting pot. From a personal standpoint is I've sat at a desk and out one-on-one and got two every day. I think the boys and that's what they're looking at today. One of the things I miss most right now is I used to do education, which I think almost all of us have at some point in our past. That's been our primary job in theater. And that is one thing I miss most of my day-to-day basis. I don't get to sit and watch that spark happen as much anymore.
Yeah.
But I do still to be a part of that spark. But it is when you see that awakening within somebody, and you know at the end of the day, you have a small part of making that happen. And
Yeah.
one-on-one will always appreciate watching that blossom within somebody. That's what makes it work.
And the spark in the audience. When you pick that show that they've never heard of, that it's now their favorite show, that's the best.
Well, with someone I know, every show they see, or every other show, it's like, that's my new favorite show. That's exciting. That's exciting. Alec, you're up.
Okay, my passion is literature. And theater is just literature made alive in front of your eyes. And it's the human heart, it's the things we hate and love, it's murder, sex, it's raising children, it's all the things that life is all about. And it's so vital and alive when it's done on the stage, and it's different every production.
John?
Well, to echo some of that, I mean, I come from, my grandfather was a published writer, so there's a large part of me that the reason I do this is storytelling, and it's telling stories to people and sharing stories with people. But it goes back to my mom again, when I was a kid. She said, people from interest, when I was a kid, my mom got me started in theater, she didn't know what to do with me, so she trotted me down here, she dropped me off, and she'd come back. And what I've discovered in theater, and it's also why it's in different stages, is a family. I've known people now 40 years of my life because my family started here on that little ball, this Hans Brinker and Hans Brinker the Silver State. And when I was 17, I was going to Colorado on a scholarship. My dad screamed to save so I could go on the London trip back. And
Charlie in the box, who at first no one really wanted to play with. And for me, when I was a kid, and I'll preface this, I've been constantly noted as being very energetic, very outgoing. I'm actually really shy, but I've developed this external persona to cover that. Although I'm terrified of social situations. I would drive around the block 8 times before I would go into a party because I'm afraid that I'll have no one to talk to and nothing to talk about. But for me, I finally, when I was like a teenager, I started to get very energetic. And like John, I had so much energy. I was very loud, very energetic, and I had people constantly telling me, you need to quiet down, you need to stop. And I was just like, but I did, but I was miserable. And my first theater production I was ever in was, it was Kiss Me Kate. I was just in the chorus, but I was a dancer, and I was really excited. And we were doing this production, we were doing the big dance number, Too Darn Hot. And our theater director was this guy named Mr. Nice, and he was Army Reserve, and he was as far from nice as you could be. He would scream at us and like swear at us, like, what are you doing? Like, and we were doing Too Darn Hot one night, and he just stopped. He's like, stop, goddamn it, and we're all petrified. And he's like, all right, I'm so sick of this. And he says, everyone needs to look at Amy Shepherd, and that's like, oh god, I'm like slowly skulking away. And he said, because she's the only one right now who is doing it right. And that was the first time in my entire life, besides my parents, that I was told that I was right at something, at anything. And it was that moment that it was something like, this is where I need to be. And for me, it really came full circle when my first regional theater that I did at OFT was Charlotte's Web, and I was really lucky I got to play Charlotte. And there was this one little girl who I met afterwards. And at first, I remember seeing her from the audience. She was the kid at the end who, when we were doing our bows, she was like squirming out of her mother's lap, trying to get to us. And then when we were talking to her afterwards, and she was like, "My name's Amy, and your name's Amy too." And oh my gosh, she was just flipping out. And I was like, "Oh, that's awesome!" And you get real loud because you're talking to the other kids, and I'm about to leave and go back and change. And I have one of the other actors said, "Oh, Amy, there's someone to talk to." And I go back out, and it's this little girl again, and her mom. And I look, and I'm like, "Okay, what's going on?" And her mom says, "Oh, she just wanted to tell you something." And she just looks up at me and very shy, like bringing her hand. "I just wanted to tell you that I love you." Like she's never met me. And I was like biting back, and I'm like, "Oh, thank you." And and the last thing she said, she was for me. She said, "I will never forget you." And for me, it's like that I was able to make this impact on this child's life, and that I have this ownership and some responsibility for the way that she's going to think about things in the future was just this amazing gift that I was given by this very small person. And my mom came to that show too, and she came out afterwards, and she was bawling her eyes out. And she's kind of seen me in everything, and she'll tell me, she's like, "Oh, in that show you were kind of chewing the scenery," but like that particular show, she just came out, and she was red faced, and the tears were streaming down her face. And so, yeah, I mean, it's the one place that I get to use all the time.
Before Ned says anything, I just want to again say my sincere, warm, from the heart, tribal thanks to all of you for coming. This is so important because so often theater is to entertain us, and we'd like to spread that out into the community and make that as vital as we can. So if you have any ideas for when or where or what about to have the next one of these, email me or Facebook me or Ned and let us know, because we would like you to set the program.
Well, maybe we can have our distinguished